everybody, and welcome back to this 16th episode of Dev Show. My name is Sherry List, and I'm your host today, together with my good colleague Rasmus Jacques. And today we have one of our amazing speakers back to this show, and he's going to talk about a topic which also happened to be one of my main interests as well. Rasmus is going to talk about it in a detail in a minute. Before that, I just wanted to remind you to familiarize yourself with our code of conduct, which is highlighted on our main meetup page. Thank you, Rasmus. Because we really want to have an inclusive environment for everybody. And wanted to remind you that during the show, we are going to highlight the link to our feedback form and also the link that you can claim your Azure Heroes Learner badge. We're going to talk about it at the end of the show as well. But also, we want you to let us know that where you're watching us from by typing it in our chat. And also ask the question. Our speaker is going to answer them all during the Q&A session. So with that, handing it over to you, Rasmus.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. And welcome everybody to the Dev Show. Yeah, 16th episode. Time's flying. And today we have, as you said, one of our speakers back, and he's going to talk about microfrontends in the cloud. So from theory to practice, he's calling the title here. So that's it's interesting to see. And as we have learned also from having him here before, it's also learnings from actually real cases from one of the big companies in Denmark, which is in this case Maersk. So in this session, he's going to talk about, give us an intro to microfrontends, what is it, and also talk about the framework that he's using called Pyro, and also demo it to us so we can see how Waqas using this in his daily work within Maersk. So yeah, and I just said who is back. It's of course Waqas Ali, and welcome back, Waqas. It's very good to have you back. And to those of you who haven't met Waqas before and didn't saw his session last time, Waqas is a senior cloud software engineer, and he's working at Maersk. He's been working with Microsoft technologies for more than 10 years. And the last few years, he has turned his focus onto mainly working with cloud technologies. He loves writing and testing his code, and also like the idea of test-driven development. So outside of work, we also learned last time that you spend your evenings on finding what's new in tech or with your family, and you live with your wife and 2 kids, and on the weekends you play chess with your son, and you also play a lot of computer games and watch Marvel fan. You're a big Marvel fan, so you watch a lot of Marvel movies. So I can imagine in these pandemic times where everybody's locked up home, you can do a lot of computer gaming and watch a lot of movies. So I'm just going to ask you, which game are you playing mostly these days when you're locked up at home?
First of all, thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here. But unfortunately, pandemic is not giving me chances to play any games. So in recent times, I have not been playing any games. I really want to, but I'm not getting any time. But whenever I get a chance, I will go back and play my favorite game, Witcher 3. So I would love to do that. Hopefully in the next few weeks.
Let's hope you get the time to do that. I'm all excited to hear about your talk today. So I think we should just jump in, Waqas. So welcome back to the Dev Show, and look forward to hear about your microfrontends talk today.
Yeah, sure.
The stage is yours.
See you around.
Okay. Okay, so let's get started. Thanks for joining, everybody. So today's talk is about microfrontends, and I'm going to show you what microfrontends are and how I'm using them. But first, a quick introduction. about myself. Thank you, Rasmus, as you did also last time, introducing me. I'm a senior cloud developer, and every day I write cloud native applications. I like to work with Frontend, and I like to work with React. So that's why I'm doing all this. And other than that, I'm a family guy. I love spending time with my family and playing computer games. You can find me on these channels here. And also, if you have any questions about today's talk, or if you have any suggestions, please come to me, either on Twitter or LinkedIn, and come up with your suggestions or whatever you think of about today's talk. So let's just dive into what is today's agenda. Today I'm going to be talking about some introduction to Microfrontings. It's not a very detailed introduction, but I'm going to introduce you to the concept, and then we're going to look into the framework that we are going to work with today. And I have made a very basic application to show how the framework connects everything together. There will be some code samples that I'll show you. And then we'll create one micro-frontend app together using that framework. And then I will show you some learning resources, which are also in the show notes. You can find all the links, and then we will wrap up. So before we get started, let's take a look at a problem that I faced myself. Maybe one of you guys might have faced it also. And the problem is, imagine that if you are making a fix on the front end, and you made your fix, and now you want to release your fix, but you find out that one guy from your team calls you and said, okay, hey, you don't have to release it because we made a fix and it's not quite there yet. So please just wait, because the fix that we made it's not good enough. We are making another one, and then you do it. So in this case, what would you do? So in my case, it was, I had to release this hotfix, but I couldn't do it because the master branch was kind of I would like to use the word infected with all the pandemic and stuff. But the way you can remove the infection is to those guys make their fix and then do it. But imagine if all this happening on a Friday evening and you want to go home, but you can't really do that. So why I'm telling you all this story, because this all relates to this all problem relates to the thing that we're solving here. So we're going to come back to this story afterwards. But first, let us go into and see a very quick timeline of how the web development has been looking during the years. So this is a very quick timeline of how the web development has looked like. So in the start, I remember, and I've seen also, there were applications delivered as a big monolithic app. So you have the UI and the backend, and even the database all delivered in one go. It was one app, maybe one Windows Server machine, let's say if it's Windows based, running somewhere, and it has everything you need. And whenever you fix something, you just release the whole thing. And then afterwards, we also saw the split of front end and back end, where we could see that the front end is might be on a different server or might be on a different project, but there was a separation between front end and back end. And after that, we also saw the back end was divided into microservices, and it's still running very successfully, this type of architecture. And you see backend services divided into microservices. And I also work with projects where we have a lot of microservices running in the backend. But if you notice here, the front end, it's the same over the years. Different frameworks came in and they tried to solve it by making some components. So for example, React has some components you can do in Angular also. But still, in the application itself, it's a monolithic application. You have to release it in one go. So there's a lot of trade-offs. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have a monolith app, but there's a lot of trade-offs you have to make, and let's talk about those. So first of all, difficult to maintain for big teams. Why I say this? Because if you have a bigger team that is sitting on different locations, then when they're writing code on the same code base, you're bound to have merge conflicts. So, and if you want to try to solve those merge conflicts, it depends on the type. Scenario to scenario. Sometimes they're really difficult to solve. Sometimes you have to involve two different people to solve those conflicts. Sometimes you can do it yourself, but it is still an overhead on top of it. And once you define the architecture, this architecture stays, and everybody has to follow that. And then this grows every day. This grows bigger and bigger. And then when you go ahead and release something, then you have to release it in, let's say if you're using Azure DevOps, or if you're using GitHub Actions or something else, you have to release it in one go. And if something goes sideways, then you have to find ways to not take down the whole system and fix it and release it again. And again, you will be releasing the whole thing. So to solve all these issues, you can use this architecture called Microfrontings. What this means that the microservices approach that you looked at earlier, that we use in the backend, you can take kind of a similar approach and use it in the front end. It's not completely the same approach, but since we have this nice term, microservices, so that's why we can use it also in the front end. And this brings all the benefits that you get when you're using microservices architecture. Of course, you have to be very careful when designing your front end. And I'm going to be sharing some of the tips and some of the learning experiences that I have had while doing this. So one of the things that when you're doing this is one of the benefits that you get out of it is that by time you have more maintainable code bases. So imagine if your app is based on a micro frontend. Each micro frontend is a separate app itself, which lives inside some repository. So it's a separate repository for maybe each app, or one repository for your micro frontends and one for your base application. Whatever suits your need. For me, it makes more sense to put each team into its own repository. So whatever they do, they put it in their own repository, and then in runtime we can just combine everything and show it in the application. So what this gives us, the independence of releases. So we can release everything independently. So if I am working with 5 teams and all of them are working on different things that are going to be used in my application, all of them can have their own release schedules, and they can just release. This will make more sense when we go a little further in the talk, but they can just release whenever they want, and things will just work, because that's how the whole strategy should come together into play. So this means that when you have independent releases, you have to have some kind of infrastructure, some kind of autonomy, and some kind of automation also in place in your teams. So you should be using some kind of maybe Azure DevOps or these pipelines or GitHub Actions or something else to automate this. And this makes it easier for the teams to grow easier, and it's easier to for the teams to go in and start doing something, because they can use whatever framework they want and whatever their own way, and they just have to be their code or their app should have to be combined by the framework in the runtime. So when you're doing this, you can independently write different parts of the application on different time. And so this is a very decentralized approach that Micro Frontend brings to the table. This means your app has multiple components that are placed on different places, and the good part is that you can use any framework you want with Micro Frontend. So maybe I like React, so I would definitely go with the React app. But if someone likes Vue or Angular, you can create your apps in that. And then all of these will work together seamlessly. So you have the power of this combining different frameworks together if you want to, if one of your team wants it. And then having different release schedules and having this decentralized approach, it makes this framework or this technology very powerful. So now let's quickly talk about when you're designing your. So this is just a quick introduction to Microfrontends. I have tried to keep it as simple as possible. So now when you're designing something, you have to keep in mind a few things. For example, how your microfrontend looks like in terms of either it's where in the page you want to show it, or either the whole page is itself is a microfrontend. So there are two types that I have identified. And also I found out this guy who wrote this book about microfrontends called Luca. He wrote this Building Microfrontends book where he talks about this. When you're designing microfrontends, you have two different kinds of splits, which is a vertical split and the horizontal split. Vertical split means that you have a front end, which is a back end and a database. So in this case, the front end is the whole application, or sorry, the whole page, I would say. I will show you in a minute how this looks like. And the horizontal split is if you take a page and then different parts in that page are microfrontends. So this is more of an horizontal split. It is more, you have to put a lot of thought into when you're designing a page with the horizontal split, because when you're architecting this page, different microfrontends should come together nicely. And the easiest to do is the vertical split, which is your page. Each page itself is a microfrontend, and the app that I made also follows this strategy, that each page is served as a microfrontend. So now we have talked about what microfrontends are and how is the design strategy should look like. Now I'm going to introduce you to the framework that is called Pyro. This is the framework that I've been working with, and I really like this framework. First of all, it was based on React, and the reason I really liked it is because it doesn't get in your way. You can use the full framework, or it also provides something called Pyro Core, which you can integrate into an existing application, and it just sits nicely into your existing apps. Also, if you want to do that, or if you want, you can start from scratch also. And it's just I found it easier to work with Pyro. There was another framework. It was that I looked into. It's called Single Spark. That was my second choice after this. That was also a good framework, but I went with this one. And when we talk about Pyro, you have to understand two base concepts. One is called the app shell or the Pyro instance, and the other one is called the pilots. What is a app shell or a Pyro instance? That is the app shell is the concept. You can read more about it on Google's design, some documentation. They call it the place where you have all the central where you have all the shared things and all the shared CSS which you deliver when the application loads. So this is the first thing which loads into the application. It's kind of a similar concept. In this case, it's a Pyro instance that loads in when you go to the page, and it has all the shared components and the header and the footer, whatever you want to add into the app shell. It really depends on you. So it doesn't bound you that you have to specifically add a few things. But this is the place where you decide where your microfrontends will appear. So you have to predefine the places where I personally call them hooks, but I don't think the Pyro framework calls them hooks. But for the sake of discussion, I would like to call them hooks. So you can define these hooks where these the pilots will hook onto, and then when you develop the pilots, you can follow a procedure. I will show you that, and then your application, your pilot or your microfrontend will appear over there. So you have to do that in the app shell. Once you do that, once you have the app shell, then you can build a pilot on top of the app shell. So first you need the Pyro instance, or you need to develop the Pyro instance or the app shell. Once you have it, then you can develop the pilot. So the pilot is something, it's just like, basically it's everything what I'm talking about when I say develop, it's both of these things in the end would be in NPM packages, right? The NPM apps. But for pilot, you need to provide it with an application shell, which would be served as a root for this. So it will sit on top of the application shell. And here, this is the base of your application. And here you will define where this app will show up in your Pyro instance. And I will also show you how you can do that. Before I show you some demo, let's just see how the developer frameworks, the developer workflows looks like in case of Pyro. So what happens in this is that as a developer, you will create an app shell. You will develop it, and then you can publish it. In my case, I will publish it to NPM, a private NPM feed. You can use a private or public, whatever suits your need. Or you can deliver the app shell, which is in the end it's a gun-zipped file. It's a tarball, which you can deliver to the pilot developers, let's say. So you can use NPM or something else that you want. And once it's there, then whatever team you have, they can pull the package and create their pilot. So this team will pull this from the NPM and create their pilot on top of this app shell. And once they're ready, they can test it locally. And once they're ready, they will just push it to the feed service. So the feed service is something that is serving, that's responsible for serving the pilots. It also takes, you can also push the pilots to it, and it also serves the pilots to your application also. So the feed service in the end would be delivering the pilots to your app shell. So imagine this is your front end. So if you're running this application, it will request the pilots from the feed service. So in my case, in what I will show you in a minute, the feed service would be something written as an Azure function, but it could be anything you want. You can write your own service. But since I work with Azure Cloud every day and I use it, so I use Azure function and put this into the storage account. I will show you how this all looks like in a minute. So how the whole toolchain comes together is the module developer. So this picture, I took it from the Pyro website, and they try to explain how the developer would develop their pilots or app shell. So they deliver the pilot people. They have made this pilot CLI, which you can use to create pilots or app shell, whatever you want, and you can use the same thing to publish this to wherever you want. And then the feed service has different things running it, and it is also responsible for serving this to the users. So that's the whole chain, the whole scenario of how it looks like. So pilots and Pyro, these two terms were very in the start a little bit confusing for me. So please remember Pyro. When I say Pyro, this means that this is the framework I'm talking about. And a pilot is something, it's the micro frontend itself that is built on top of the Pyro instance or the app shell. I like to call it app shell because I like the word better. So app shell means the Pyro instance, and pilot is something which is built on top of the app shell. So that's how the development workflow looks like. Let's quickly take a look at the sample application that I made. So this is the app that I made here. This is a very simple app. Don't judge me from the UI side. I was not willing to make it fancy, but what I'm trying to convey here is that how this framework interconnects things. And my idea is that whatever I will learn, I will put into this app so you can go ahead and take a look. This is this app. Right now, I'm serving it from my own personal Azure account, but you can also find this in my GitHub. It's open source, so you can take it and you can take a look at the source code. But first, let's look at here. So I have added only these two menu items for now, and they just show you how you can use data sharing from how you can call the external APIs from the pilot. So when you want to do that, how you do that, and this one shows how you can call an shared function from inside the app shell, because app shell is developed separately from the pilot. So if you have some shared code, you have multiple ways that you can access the shared code. Either you can put them in a separate npm package, which is the preferred way to do it. So this is the one which is using the separate npm package that I will just show you in code in a moment. And this is calling that package has been installed in the pilot, and now I'm able to call the API, which the package itself calls an external API and gets these words. And this one is something that if you want to write some shared code inside your app shell. So if you can go here, this is the code in my GitHub repo, and this is the code here. This is the whole application that looks like. This is my app shell here, and you can see that this index TSX file has a lot of code which is serving the page that you just saw, and these other folders here, these are the pilots. It's not recommended to keep them like this, but for the purpose of the demo, and so just so you guys can also understand what's going on, I just kept them in the same folder, so it's easier for me to put it here and then share it onwards. So you can everything starts from this index TSX file, and then you can go in and you can take a look at read the source code. I'm updating it whenever I find something. I just update it, and yeah. So this is the application shell. I've named it also as app shell, and it has the very basic things that you need. I've tried to add some helpers and added some components also, and try to give you an idea of when you try to convert your app into a micro frontend, or you're writing something from scratch, how you can do that. Okay, now if I can go back to my slides here, we have already seen the demo. Now quickly I will show you how this all is connected, the architecture behind it. So what happens is the developer is making some the base, the app shell. In my case, I'm using GitHub. So I push my code to GitHub, and then I have set up an action, GitHub action, which is taking all all the things that are related to my app shell and pushes them to a storage account, and it's running as a static website. So the app we just saw, this one is actually a static web app running in Azure. The code for this action, you can also find it in my repo. So this is how the app shell. This is how I have set up the app shell. Whenever I make a change, I push, and it just quickly gets into into my static website. All the files are updated. The next thing is the pilot. So the pilot itself, you do the same. You write your pilot, and then you push to GitHub, and some action runs, and then it makes a call to the feed service, which is, in my case, it's Azure function, and that function just puts everything to the storage, which is also a storage account in my case. And let's just quickly talk about this feed service here. So this feed service is, I told you before that this is I wrote this service, and actually from my last talk, I realized that I never written any open source software. So as a part of last month Hacktoberfest, I wrote this service, and I actually talked to these guys. This is the organization who is making the Pyrrole framework, and I just wrote this function, and now this is present here on the Pyrrole GitHub repo. You can find the node one that these guys wrote, and this also works perfectly if you want to use it. But if you are an Azure guy like me, you can use this one. It's written in C#, and it's also open source, so you can just go ahead and use it. And if you find any issues with it, or if you have any suggestions, please come back to me. So let's just get back here. So that's how the pilot, when you develop the pilot, that's how all of this comes together. In my case, you can if you want, you can replace this GitHub with something else. You can use Node.js and store somewhere else if it makes sense to you. So if you combine this, if you combine all this, so this is the whole workflow. That's how it looks like. You have so your front end is talking to the feed service, which is getting the app shell from the static website storage, lack of a better name, just for the explanation purposes, and then the pilot storage. All right. So the Pyrrole instance is requesting this, and it gets the pilots, and it loads them in real time, and it shows them whichever pilot makes sense for you when you're running the app. So if I can go to my code here, and let's just open command prompt and quickly look at some code. Yes?
Would you please zoom in? Because
okay.
we can see your screen. Thank you very much.
Is it better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, good. So I'm going to show you how you can create a pilot. First, I will show you some commands which you can use, and you can find all these commands on the Pyrrole documentation. The link, you will find it in the show notes as well. So if I can go to my app shell, and in the app shell, you can find, so imagine if you're ready with your app shell, you can use something called Pyrrole build command. You can use it here, or you can use it in your pipelines. whatever makes sense. And this is going to create a package for you, which you can serve. So if you use just Pyrrole build, it will create two packages. One is called the emulator package, which is you can use for development purposes, or you can use it will also create the release package. So and it will put everything in the dist folder. So if I can go here, you see all these files, which was not a good idea to take a directory on this. But if I say release, there is a release folder here. And if I say emulator, so you see this is an emulator folder, and here it has created me this tarball here. It's called app shell and then the version. And this package is the one that you should give to your pilot developers, and then they can create the pilots. So I will show you that in a moment. So all of these commands that you saw, these are given to me by Pyrrole CLI. You can install it, the Pyrrole CLI, via npm. It's an npm package, and then you can run it by saying Pyrrole debug, and then it will run this app shell, the app that you saw on here. This one you can run it locally. I'm not going to do it right now because I will show you how to create a pilot. So in order to create a pilot, first you would imagine you're in a different repository. I'm doing it in the same repo because it makes sense for the demo purpose. So you create a folder called whatever the name of your pilot is. So in my case, I would say my app, and then you would say pilot new, and then you have to give the path to your emulator package. So in my case, it's in here. Oops. And here. And then if I can just bring it here, and then you can say target is the current directory. Yeah. So if I press enter now, it will recreate the pilot for me, but I'm not going to do that because I have experienced whenever I'm sharing the screen, it takes about a minute or two to create it. So I've already created that, the app, and let's just take a look. So now normally you would open Visual Studio Code here, but since I have everything in one repository, I will just go ahead and use it. For some reason, I am not able to zoom in this. So if I can zoom in, okay, I can't zoom in. Sherry, if you can tell me how to zoom into Visual Studio Code.
If you go on right and
Control plus. Okay.
one more time.
For some reason, my it is running. Okay. Is it better?
If you do it one more time, then we'll be more readable. Okay, perfect. That's perfect now.
Okay, good. So, so you see, I have been playing around with creating multiple pilots here. Let's take this one. So if I take this, you can see there is this setup function, which is, let's just remove this code for now. And I think so this is the entry point for your pilot. And this is there when you create your app, you get some boilerplate code, some other code that I removed from here. You can remove that, you can keep that, up to you. But this is the entry point of your application, and that's the name of your app shell. In my case, it's called app shell, but it would be whatever the name of your application. And then this is the entry point of your pilot. So here you can do multiple things. In my case, what I want is this this app to be appearing in the side menu of the app that you're looking at. So for example, if you remember, I have only two about and shared here. And if I show you this one, it has this about. So this about pilot is what you see there. And how this magic happens is that you write this function, which says register menu. And I have already defined a menu, which is called type general. And whenever I hook onto this by using this function, it will put my pilot into the general menu. And then this one is, as you can see from the IntelliSense, that this is a route. You have to define a route and then the component. So this is how you define a route, and then you add your component afterwards. So just like registering a route in React. So this is the same thing you can do with this guy. So you have the register menu of type general, and then you have the register page with the route and the component itself. And then if I can, let's try. Let's see if I am on the right app. Called new app, because I have a lot of pilots created lately. So I will say, so now when you're debugging it locally, you would say pilot debug, because it's not a pyrrole now, it's a pilot. So you will use pilot. So these pilot command and pyrrole command, they are provided to you by the pyrrole CLI, which you get it for free. And when it runs, you will see some, everything should be green here. If it's red, then there's a problem, in simple terms. So it's green and yellow, it's good. Let's go to our local host and see if, oh, wrong local host. Sorry for that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. And hopefully I chose the right. Oh, yes, here. So you see, now I am looking at this guy here, new page. So that's simple how you can put stuff in the menu. The same way you can put the pilots on the other parts of the application. And if you want, you can visit this my repo in the future, and I'll be updating, keeping it update with the new things, how you can do stuff in real life. I'll be keep adding stuff here. So the next step as a developer for you would be to release your fix. And in real life, I would assume, and I would suggest that you might have a pipeline set up somewhere, or some kind of automation going on, where you just push your code to your repository, and it will just release it. That would be perfect scenario. But for the sake of my demo purpose, I will not do that. What I will do is I will just cheat a bit, and I will just push directly to the cloud. I'm using the service provided by the Pyrrole guys. It's for demo purposes only, and then it will just push my changes, build my changes, push my changes, and then come back to me with saying a message that everything went successful. While this is running, let us go back to my slides, and let's look at the problem. If you remember this problem that I presented in the start about what do I do when I have this kind of problem, well, guess what? Now you have seen all this, and now I can just go ahead and release my fix, because I don't care about stepping on anyone else's toes, right? So I have my own pipeline set up. I have my own things going on in the app. If things don't work out, I can just disable my micro frontend or my pilot, and everything will work. How can I do that? I can also show you that. That is not something that is delivered as a part of the framework, but it's very easy to do it. You can build something yourself. That if something doesn't work out, you can just go ahead and disable your pilot, and things will work out. So the problem that I was having in the start, it can be solved really easily with using micro frontends. If I can go to here and I can say, oh, I cannot do it because I've already published it. Okay, nice. And to fix that, I can either upgrade my package, which I can show you quickly how. You can go to the package JSON file and look at this guy and upgrade it. And then you come back up and do this. Okay, so while this is running, what I was about to show you was, but I can't show you that. So let's go back to my app and see if our micro frontend shows up here. So right now we have this, and let's see if, I think it's building right now. So let's not try that. But I was talking about disabling the pilots. So if I can go ahead and use the inspector here, and I have an extension installed, which is given by the Pyro guys. This only works in the debug mode. But you can use the same strategy and create something yourself, because when you see here, there is a register menu method. There's also an unregister menu method that you can use, and that will remove that from here. So if you do like this, it goes away, because now my app was not behaving. I can do this and it just completely wipes off my pilot, and my rest of the app works fine. So now it's back. So that's something you can use the same kind of strategy in your app if something misbehaves. Let's check in the end. Oh, here it is. So you see, I just pushed my code and everything just worked fine. And now I have this new app just appearing along with other things. And that's how you, so imagine if you have multiple teams, they will build their pilots, push, and things will just appear here without any problem. So let's get back to the slides. I have included all of the links about all the things that I've been saying in the learning resources. You can find them on this link. And if you have any questions or suggestions, please reach me here on these channels. And in the end, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And over to you, Sherry.
Thank you very much, Waqas, for the great talk. Let me just double check it. Actually, there was not question. There was no question in the chat, to be honest. But I have one for you from my side.
Okay.
So, have you also considered to you said that you compare a couple of different frameworks. Actually, my very favorite one is NX. Have you checked that one out?
NX, yes, the one with
Narwhal is the company.
yeah, MonoRepo, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I converted one app that was using NS to Microfrontends. So I have been using NX in the past, yes, and I know NX.
Yeah, that's also kind of that's a good one. I use it many times. I would say that in last 1.5 year, I haven't worked on kind of the similar thing, because I don't have any big project anymore. So I only create a small demos. But yeah, this is a really good, especially if you are working in bigger companies, as you mentioned, with multiple different teams, and it's always good to give the flexibility to the front-end developers to do things in the way that they want to, or they are good at.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I haven't really talked about the fact that I know that even in my company, there's a lot of different teams that want to use different frameworks. So maybe someone is not comfortable with React, so they can go ahead and use something else without any problems, right?
Yeah, exactly. And to me, the best architecture will be that then you create all of your components to the web components. Then it's going to be fantastic. That was in my previous work, that was actually the path that I was going to, slowly also converting everything to the kind of that web components, because then there won't be any issue, and there won't be that because I don't like to work with or I don't want to work with the framework A, B, C, D, then I wouldn't go and create everything from scratch.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the kind of the best way to go. Um, Rasmus actually left. He was not feeling very well, so I guess I am going to kind of that to take care of the end part. Let me just share my screen as well. And I'm going to send a follow-up email to all of you with all the links that Waqas mentioned it. So as for the feedback, we really want to improve the show, and that's why that we need your feedback, and we really want you to let us which topics you want to listen, and also if you want to give any talk, let us know. And one thing is that one of you that is going to give us feedback is also going to receive a package from us, like a thank you package. So please scan this QR code and then let us know that how you want us to improve. And in the beginning, I also promised that all of you are going to get Azure Heroes Learner Badge as well. I already highlighted the link, but if you haven't seen that before, go ahead, scan this QR code, and then follow the instruction on the page, and then claim your first Learner Badge if you haven't got it before. And if this is the very first time that you hear about this program, Azure Heroes, you can think about it as as a thank you from Microsoft to using and learning the technology, or also you can simply think about it as like an online swag that you can get. But later on, when we are going to get back to the normal day again, the people that they have these learner badges, they can actually they can claim the actual swag as well next time that you see us in any of the conferences and Microsoft booth. So yes, go ahead and download the app if you haven't have it before. Is your digital wallet, because Azure Heroes is based on public blockchain, so you have to store this badge somewhere. If you want to hear more about the program and also the other badges that we have, you can go ahead and look at aka.ms/azure.heroes. And the owners of Azure Heroes, you can go to the azureheroes.community and simply add your badges, your digital wallet to the map. So you're going to be added to our map, and you can also see all the Azure Heroes around you as well. Our upcoming events. Next week, we are going to start at 4:30 instead of 4 o'clock. And then we are going to have a talk about demystifying Apache Spark by Jan Kors from Microsoft. And the same day, for those of you that you know of the NG Vikings, so NG Vikings is back with a meetup. The same day, it's going to have two talks. One is about the Angular or Blazor, And the other one is talking about the kind of a new way of architecting your app as well. So I'm going to send a link to you, but it's going to be on NG Copenhagen and also NG Oslo. We are joining our forces together as usual. And on December 1st, we are going to have Asim Hossein showing us that how we can build a carbon efficient application. And on December 8th, again, we are going to start at 4:30 with David Rosette talking about how to build a green PWA. And this is an event that I really wanted to highlight it here this Friday. One of our Azure MVPs, Marilag, she's putting all the MVP community from Philippines together for this event, which is called Cloud Talks for a Cause, because you can also donate money, and they are going to donate this money to an organization to create a pop-up hospital there. Because if you haven't heard of it currently, and Philippines has a lot of issues with a very strong typhoons, so they are trying to support from their side. And since we are running out of the time, Virtual Azure Community Day is coming back on 3rd of December. Go ahead and add it to your calendar. And I'm skipping this. And I will say that see you next week on November 24th at 6:30. Thank you very much, and thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.